Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you gotta ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Welcome to Thursday night after hours live with Chuck Bowser RCDD. You know, today's kind of a special day because I'm finally back to doing my live streams after hours again, and I'm in the middle of a hurricane. Yeah, so even a hurricane can't stop me. Yes, Hurricane Nicole. It's already gone over top of us, and I haven't been outside since it's gone by, but you know, it wasn't as strong as the previous hurricane that went through, but we're okay. So there you go. You should mention the video that I sent you from work. Oh, yeah, I can go back and look at that again. Sorry, somebody sent me something in TikTok. So I'm live on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram soon. I'm still working on Instagram. One of these days I'll get it figured out. I just will. Instagram, it's there. We always start off with my Thursday night live streams by what are you drinking? What are you drinking? Now, if you know me, you know that I am drinking. What is this? It's not moonshine. It is root beer Zevia. Root beer Zevia. Anthony is in the house. Hello, Anthony. How you doing, my friend? So, do I know why people died in 316 on Friday the 13th? Will we come? Yeah, whatever. Anthony's in the house. Hello, Anthony. How you doing, my friend? So we are here to answer questions about communication technologies. Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a, right? Copper cable, fiber cable. If you are a regular viewer of the podcast and you want to help support the show, would you mind considering clicking on that QR code right there? Click on that QR code right there. You can go there, you can buy me a cup of coffee. If you buy me a cup of coffee, I will send you some podcast stickers. Right? And you can also schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course. Right? And that's just a way to help support the channel, because the channel does cost money to put up. And yeah, I got to make some money on it. Just do, right? Also, the next step is the acronym challenge. Today's acronym is BCT. Today's acronym is BCT. What does that stand for? BCT. Somebody tell me. Looking at the chat boxes. Look at the chat boxes on LinkedIn. The chat box on TikTok. See if anybody knows what that acronym means. BCT. I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with bonding. BCT stands for, nobody's answered it, so we'll just go ahead and do it. The bonding conductor for telecommunications. Bonding conductor for telecommunications. That is the conductor that goes from the primary bonding bus bar, primary bonding bus bar to the grounding electrode outside of the building. That is the BCT. The BCT. Now, next is the motivational minute. And this one came from a meme that I saw on social media. It says, if you erase all of the mistakes of your past, you would also erase all of the wisdom of your present. Isn't that cool? If you erase all of the mistakes of your past, you also erase all the wisdom of your present. Remember, when we do things wrong, that's a learning opportunity. It is a learning opportunity. Also, keep in mind, did you see last week's show? Oh man, it was so cool. I had Jannard Tools on. Jannard Tools. We talked about what kind of tools should a new person have? What kind of tools should a technician have? Um, what kind of tools should the company buy versus what kind of tools should the technician buy? And we also talked about lifetime warranties, lifetime warranties on tools. I had no idea that Jannard Tools had lifetime warranties. And I even kind of half jokingly said, what about somebody uses their nines for a hammer? And he goes, yeah, we'll replace that. It's like, dude, that's pretty cool. Now, next Monday show, we are going to talk about how to deal with material shortages. How to deal with material shortages, right? The chip shortage, the cable shortage. People keep saying some hubbub about some shortages with plenum products for cable and stuff. Okay, well, we're going to talk about all that, right? And then also, I'm doing 4 live meetups for the remainder of the year. Okay, between November and December. One will be in Tampa, one will be in Orlando, one will be in Jacksonville, the other will be in Miami. So what I'll do is I'll announce those locations, 3-4 days ahead of time, and what I'll do is I'll broadcast the location. If you show up, I do them typically from like 6 to 6:30. If you show up, I'll have free podcast stickers. I'm also going to have some free untwist tools. Okay, free untwist tools. So if you want an opportunity to get one of those for free, just show up at the live meet. Okay, just show up at the live meet. So now let's get on with the questions. Okay, let's get on with the questions. The first question comes from Jorge, and this message came to me from Instagram, and he says the customer wants me to label cables for future use. Who would be legally responsible if something goes wrong? What Jorge's talking about there is abandoned cable. Per 800.25, 770.25, 725.25, all tells us that we have to remove accessible portions of abandoned cable because it's a fuel source for fire. This is a code book shout. Now, it does say that the cable has to be accessible and the cable also has to be abandoned. So it defines abandoned as being terminated with a connector or a piece of equipment or being labeled for future use. So what he's talking about there is, what if the customer just says, what if he just tells you to put it's for future use? Now, there's 2 ways that I can answer this question. The first way I'm going to answer this is, does the customer truly believe that customer can be used in the future, right? If it's a Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a cable, there's a good possibility that it could be used in the future. If it's an old dual RG59 Wang coax, guess what? That's not being used in the future. They're trying to skirt the code book, right? But if it is something that can be used in the future, go ahead and label it for future. Document that conversation, okay, via confirming email or something. Document the conversation and then just move on with it. That way, if anything ever happens, you have the paper trail that you had that conversation with the customer. Now, on the flip side of that, what if you feel that the customer was trying to avoid having to pay to remove that abandoned cable? Well, then you really need to stand your ground and tell them, look, that's not right, right? What about terminating anaerobic fiber connectors? What about them specifically? Let me know specifically what is your question, okay? Because I can go 15 different ways with that question, right? I'll answer it next if you give me a little more background on it, right? Now, again, if it's a legacy cable, like I said, the dual RG59, stand your ground, man. Stand your ground because they're trying to avoid it. And because, if you do go and not label because that's what the customer wants, then, you could still be held responsible for that, right? He wants to know, is it still a thing? So I can't quite read your name because I don't have my glasses on. So he said, his question was, how do I feel about terminating anaerobic fiber connectors? So fiber connectors are available in a multitude of different ways. Now, we used to have hot melts and UV melts and two-part epoxy, which is what he's talking about, the anaerobics, mechanical connectors, and fusion splices. So we had like all different kinds of connectors that we can terminate with. I think, my opinion here, that anaerobic connectors are better performing than mechanical connectors because there's no splice. It's one solid piece of glass from the end face on one side of the fiber to the end face on the other side of the fiber. So it's better performing. Now, terminating anaerobic connectors are going to take a little bit more time because you got to polish them and all that other fun stuff. And it's kind of like it's more like an art. It's like an art. Mechanical connectors are a lot easier. Fusion splicing is the easiest. Now, your follow-up question is, do I feel like it's still a thing? Yes, I do. It's still out there. Now, for those who may not know about my day job, I work for a manufacturer. I don't say who it is because this podcast is not part of that. This podcast is Chuck. So my day job, I work for a manufacturer, and we sell the anaerobic fiber optic connectors. We sell the mechanical connectors and some other stuff as well. We are still selling anaerobic fiber connectors. There are some customers out there that absolutely love those connectors, right? And as Daryl points out, the anaerobic cuts out the back reflection. So for those who may not know what back reflection is typically when you have some dirt on that end face and that light hits that end face, the dirt on the end face, and gets reflected back. With a mechanical splice, you got to splice inside that connector, which could also cause some back reflection as well. But they're pretty well mated, and they got index matching gel. So back reflection is not so much of an issue with mechanical connectors. I feel, again, my personal opinion here, and if you're a fiber guy, you may disagree with me, the best and the easiest way to do fiber terminations is a fusion splice-on connector. A fusion splice-on connector, because that's permanently welded. There's no back reflection. You have very minimal loss, sometimes 0.00 if it's multi-mode fiber, right? And again, you're back to one continuous piece of glass. And fusion splicing is easy. It is absolutely easy. UCF Swift has a really nice one that runs about $4,500. It's got the cleaver, it's got the heat stripper, and the fusion splice all in one piece. I don't remember the model number off the top of my head. And I tell you what, if I had $4,500, dude, I would buy me one in a heartbeat. I love that thing so much. I got to play with one 2 weeks ago. I played with them at the trade show and stuff, but when I was back at corporate, we got to play with them. I just fell in love with that thing. And I don't remember the model number, but it's really, really cool. Okay. Question number 2, and this one comes from Andre on TikTok. He sent it to me via direct message. He says, what is the maximum size for power over Ethernet cable bundles? And should they be separated in the cable tray? So let's talk about this. There's 2 ways that you can answer this, per code and per standards. If you want the code answer, you look up article 725.144. Okay, it's in all versions of the code book. I don't know if it's in the 2023. I don't have the 2023 code book yet. I got to order. Maybe I'll do that tonight. Right, got to order it. The 2023 is the current one. 2024 is not a code book. So the current one's 2023. They just came out with it in November. I'm ordering one tonight. I'm going to do it tonight. I'm make a mental note. So there's a chart on there that tells you what size bundles you can have, and the size of the bundle depends on the number of cables and the conductor sizes. And if I remember right, some of those bundle sizes are up like 200 or 300, right? You don't want to do a bundle size 200 or 300, but that for the main going down the hallways, maybe, but not inside of a telecom room, right? Now, the best practice, and remember, code is for safety. Code is for minimum quality of construction. Minimum quality of construction. Can you do better than minimum quality? Yes, you can. And this is where the best practice answer comes into play, right? And 10,000 points to low volt Warby, because he says bundle size 24. Ding, 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 ding. You win, my friend. 24 seems to be the magic number for power over Ethernet. Okay, 24. And 24 helps you in a couple of different ways. One, it lines up pretty well with our patch panels, right? Because our patch panels, if you're splitting them in the back, 24 is exactly half of a patch panel, right? So it works out really well that way. Now, here's the thing you got to keep in mind. There's different types of power over Ethernet, okay? There's different levels. If you start getting into PoE that's higher than 30 watts, for example, like HD-T, right? Then you need to have 1.5 inches of separation between your bundles in the tray systems. Okay, if it's more than 30 watts, you have to have 1.5 inches from the edge of this bundle to the edge of that bundle. If it's over 30 watts. And the reason for that is because to do PoE, we're actually sending direct current down that cable. When you send current down a cable, it heats up the conductors, the internal temperature of the cable rises. If you got a bunch of cables in a bundle, the internal temperature of the bundle also rises. Heat affects insertion loss on a cable. The higher the heat, the more insertion loss it's going to have. So it won't perform as well. And if you reach what's called the auto ignition point, I know what George knows what that means, don't you, George? If you reach the auto ignition point of that bundle, you could literally have it catch on fire. So that's why I said, look, 24 seems to be the good number there. Right? And also make sure that you have 1.5 inches separation if you have over 30 watts. Okay. Hopefully that answered that question. Abe from Patreon. Abe wants to know, what is a good way to put in pull string so it doesn't tangle with the cable so I can reuse it? That is the question of all time, right? Because we always pull pro tip 88. I have a list of 146 pro tips. 146. You want to find them? Go to letstalkcabling.com. You'll find them, right? Pro tip number 88. Always leave a pull string. Always leave a pull string. And the way I learned that lesson was at the Office of Naval Research. I was doing some cabling there one time as a young technician. It was a Friday afternoon. We pulled in our last batch of cables, and I forgot to attach a pull string to that last bundle. I'm like, oh, man, I forgot to attach the pull string. That's the last bundle. Who cares? We terminated the cables, tested the cables, went home for the weekend. Came in on the following Monday. My boss said to me, Chuck, you guys are going back out to O&R. There's some more cables they want to run. It was the exact same run. Yeah, I was kicking myself in the butt because I just shot myself in the foot because I did not leave a pull string. So when you're pulling cable in a cable tray, when you're pulling cable in a interduct, when you're pulling cable in a conduit, right? If you just got that pull string attached to the cable bundle, the bundle wants to kind of twist and turn as it's going through that system, right? So what you can actually use is called a swivel. I just happen to have one sitting on my desk. This was actually, my brother gave it to me when I was in Baltimore. You guys remember when I was in Baltimore a few weeks back? He gave me this, right? So the way that a swivel works is it's got these two spots. On one spot, you tie your pull string. Okay, you tie your pull string on one side. You tie your cable bundle to the other side. And if you notice, watch out, you'll see this. Right up to it up close. They swivel, right? They swivel. So now as you're pulling this through, when that pull string's trying to unwind itself, this is swiveling and keeps that pull string from getting tangled. Now, let me rephrase that. It lessens the tangling. It doesn't stop it. So you will get more uses out of your pull string. Now, the thing with the swivels they are not cheap. So don't lose them. Okay, don't lose them. These things are not cheap. All right. So hopefully that answered your question. The next question, this one comes from Marco. And Marco wants to know, how can I determine the source of noise on my cable so that I can fix it? The temperature at which something catches on fire without a direct flame. Yes, exactly right. Good answer. 10,000 points to you, George. So Marco says, how can I determine the source of noise on a cable so I know how to go fix it? Okay. Now, it's a great question. Great question. First, what is noise? Noise is an unwanted electrical signal on the cable. And the problem is they can sometimes be they can be a persistent problem, which is there all the time, and sometimes they can be a random noise. And the random ones are really, really hard to find. Super hard to find. Now, the problem with noise is it affects the performance of the actual transmission. If there's enough noise on that cable, then the signal is not going to make it all the way through from the transmitter to receiver. And that's going to cause you latency, right? Think of it this way. Think of you're at the movie theater and you're watching Top Gun Maverick, right? And they show some exciting scene where he shoots down something or another. And then everybody's, oh, yeah, Top Gun, yeah. And then you miss the next 3 or 4 lines of dialogue because everybody in the room is noisy. Same problem. Now, noise is generally categorized into two categories, right? You have continuous noise and impulse noise. Continuous noise and impulse noise. So continuous noise typically is going to be below 3 volts. Impulse noise is a noise spike, and it's random. So that's what makes it dangerous. And not only is it random, it can also be as high as 350 volts. 350 volts. That's going to cause problems, right? So the first part of figuring out where your noise is coming from is to figure out what frequency range that noise is coming at. They make actually they make these meters, noise meters that you can actually measure them, and you can determine which frequency range it's in. So if you have interference that is originating from below 150 kilohertz, the most likely problem, fluorescent light fixtures, right? Fluorescent light fixtures. Stay at least 5 inches away from them, right? Other things that can cause it below that 150 kilohertz is noise from AC lines and noise from machinery. So the best way to fix that is to just pop ceiling tiles, go down the runs, make sure none of your cables are laying on top of fluorescent light fixtures, make sure none of your cables have electrical cables running in with them. Stay at least 12 inches away from them. The further, the better. If you can get further than 12 inches, absolutely do it. But at least do 12 inches, right? Visually verify everything and separate those. Now, if the noise is coming from between 150 kilohertz to 2 megahertz, then you're probably getting an issue from a piece of equipment, right? Laser printers, copiers, light dimmers, medical equipment, even computers, right? So that scenario, what you can do is you can just kind of walk around and number one, make sure your cable's not not laying on any electrical cables that have those devices hanging off of them. And also make sure that those pieces of equipment aren't anywhere near your frames or terminations. If the noise is above 20 megahertz, I've only come across this once in my entire 40-year career. If it's above 20 megahertz, then it's most likely some kind of a broadcast signal, right? A TV station, a cellular tower. Sometimes even microwave ovens will do that as well because they operate in those higher frequencies as well. I did a project once in Montgomery County, Maryland. If anybody knows Maryland, knows Montgomery County, there's a couple TV stations over there in off of River Road, right? I did a project one time just down the street from them, and we tested the cable. Everything tested fine. Customer went to operate everything. Nothing would work because it was having problems. We brought in a noise meter, and sure enough, we found out that it was a TV station. And stupid us, because if you looked out the window, you could see the TV tower about 3 blocks down the road. Yeah, there you go. Question number 5. This is from Doug on Instagram. Doug says, I need some conduit installed. Can I install it as a low voltage technician? Can I install it as a low voltage technician? Yeah, you can. Sure you can. Now, there's 2 ways you can install conduit. You can install it per the code. You can install it per the standards. Again, always try to install per the standards because that's going to give you your best chance for performance. Okay. Codes is just, remember, minimum quality. So if you're going to start installing conduit, you better know what the code says. That way you know to exceed it. If you're doing work on a project, like a new construction project, where an electrical inspector, an AHJ, will be coming out, they're going to look at your conduit to make, and even though you didn't pull a permit for that, or may not have pulled a permit for that, right? So you better know your code. Now, if you follow the standards, again, that's going to give you the best options for performance. Some tips for your best performance and following the standards is make sure that you don't have 100 feet between any 2 pull points. No more than 100 feet between any 2 pull points. So if you remember, our maximum permanent link length is 295 feet. 295 feet. So if your conduit's 295 feet long, you need to have at least 2 pull boxes. Okay? At least 2 pull boxes. You can have 3, but at least 2. In between each of those pull boxes, you should have no more than 2 90-degree bends between those pull boxes. That's known as 180 degrees of transition because 90 plus 90 equals 180. That's where it comes up from. Now, see, here's the difference between codes and standards, right? With codes, they're allowed to have 360 degrees of transition. That's 490s. Now, when you pull 4-pair cable, when you pull optical fiber cable through a conduit, if you pull too hard going through a bend, you're going to change twist rates. You're going to stretch copper. You're going to break conductors. You're going to break strands of fiber. That's why they don't want more than two 90-degree bends. Also, make sure you pay attention to your fill ratios. Typically, the best one to stick with is 40%. 40% fill for that system. Remember that 40% fill is for conduit, not for fire stopping. Other tips for putting in your own conduit, because I got the impression that that he'd never installed conduit before, the way he asked that question, because I didn't actually put the question down exactly how he written it. Bending conduit's an art, and I'm actually on Facebook. One of the channels I'm subscribed to is conduit bending, and I'm telling you, man, some of them guys are just artists with conduit, right? So if you're not that good with conduit, I suggest that you use factory bends. Factory bends, right? So and they come in different sizes, everywhere from an 11.25 degree all up to a 90 degree, right? So, for example, you don't necessarily have to buy 90 degree. You can buy 245 degrees because 45 plus 45 equals 90, right? So the factory bends will help keep the conduit not getting overbent and keep it up and still make it look good. But when you get good at putting in conduit, I'm telling you, you can be really good. And I also suggest that you use sweeping bends. Sweeping bends. You can buy the sweeping bend sweeping bends, or you can buy the regular ones. Buy the sweeping ones. When you get done with that conduit, make sure that you ream it and put a bushing on it, right? And remember, pro tip 88: always leave a pull string. Right? It's on my website, letstalkcabling.com. Pro tip list, 146 pro tips. And then when you get done, make sure you label it, and then you cap it for protection until you use it. Okay, cap it before you use it. Looking at a question over here on TikTok, somebody says 295 feet max for what type of cable? The 295 number that I was referencing there is for your horizontal cabling. Horizontal cabling is limited to maximum of 295 feet for a permanent link. That's copper or fiber. Fiber can go a lot further than 295 feet, but in the horizontal, that's what the standard says, 295. That is what it is, right? Let me see. Somebody else says on here, don't leave it until you file the serrations on the end. Yeah, reaming it. Yeah, exactly right. You want to make sure that it's clean, because if you leave anything on the end of it as you pull it through, it will mess it up. Mess it up. Henry's in the house. Hello, Henry. How you doing, my friend? We need to talk. I haven't talked to you in a while, man. You're one of my mentees. I got to catch up with you. Brady is in the house as well. Forrest, thank you. I am glad to be back. I was off for a couple weeks there. I was traveling one week, and then I caught COVID one week, and just I'm still, if you can tell, I'm still not quite over COVID yet. So I'm trying, man. I'm trying. Just not there yet. Lee wants to know, what are my thoughts? What are my thoughts on fiber that strips without fiber strippers, basically using fingers, not wanting to mention the manufacturer? Have I seen this? Huh. I'm not sure who you're talking about, Lee. You're not gonna have to talk about that tomorrow. I have no idea. Every manufacturer I've ever dealt with, they've always recommended that you use fiber strippers. Now, I've fallen in love with the thermal strippers. Like I told you, I got to mention with that UCL Swift fusion splicer 2 weeks ago when I was back at corporate. I fall in love with that thing. Man, you just put it in there and it just, with a pair of. Why do I have fiber stripper tools on my desk? Why? Hey, let me ask you guys a question, right? TikTok and also on LinkedIn. Which do you prefer, the no-nicks or the millers? Which do you prefer, the no-nicks or the millers? Now, personally, I found people new with fiber, they're going to be better off with the no-nicks, okay? But if you want to become a fiber technician, a fiber princess, all right, wearing the tiara and everything, you're going to want to master the millers, because you can strip them a lot faster. But the problem with the millers, until you build up that muscle memory, you will break a lot of fiber. So, but I've never heard about stripping it off with your finger. So I need to follow up with you on that one, because that's the first time I actually heard that, right? Let me see. Mike says here, I do pull and then have someone clean up the string for every pull. Always untwist and clean the string out. Otherwise, everything will be twisted together. Ding, 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 ding. 10,000 points for you, Michael. That is a great, great comment there because it does happen. It just does happen. Let me see. We've got one more question here. And what is the code for OSP to ISP transition in allowed footage? Okay, so I'm assuming you're in the US. So what is it? Is it 800.140? I think 800.40 or 800.140. I can't remember off the top of my head. It says the outside plant cable has to transition within 50 feet of it coming into the building. Outside plant cable is unlisted cable. Okay. Copper, plenum cable, and riser cable are listed cables. They have been tested to make sure that they meet the flame and the smoke characteristic standards set out by the NFPA. Outside plant cable can't meet those standard tests. It puts off too much smoke. Smoke's the number one killer of a people in a building fire. And some outside plant, I've said this before. I think I just said this like 2 or 3 shows ago. Sorry. Some of the outside plant cabling has that gel inside of it, that icky pick. It's flammable. That's flammable. So yeah, within 50 feet of coming in. Now there is your indoor-outdoor rated fiber optic cabling, which is a listed cable, but can also run outside. That one does not have to transition at all. And some AHJs, I'm just off the top of my head here, some AHJs will allow you to exceed the 50 feet if two things have to happen here. One, the cable has to be an all dielectric fiber optic cable, meaning there's no metal inside of it. And it has to be inside of rigid. Okay. Can't be inside of EMT. So yeah, the 50-foot rule. That's what's not normally called. Good job, Mr. Lee. How'd that class go today this week in Jacksonville, Lee? You guys were teaching that FOA class. Wish I could have gone there, but just I was teaching this week, and then with the hurricane, it is what it is. So I'm looking at the clock. I am already 4 minutes past my normal time. I appreciate everybody being here today. I'll be on next Thursday night as well because no more travel for me for the rest of the year. So I will be doing Thursday night live streams. And don't forget, I got those 4 meetups: Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Miami. And I'm giving away free tools and free stickers. So make sure you show up when I post them. I will announce on TikTok and Instagram. Oh, one last thing. I am at 897 subscribers on YouTube. I'm literally 100 subscribers away from 1,000. Please help me break 1,000. If you know somebody who would find my content interesting or help them, please send them my link. Post it on your social media. Hey, check this thing out. I am trying to break 1,000 subs on YouTube. Okay, that's part of the whole getting paid for the stuff on the back end. So until next time, everybody, remember, knowledge is power.